Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, people often ask me what it was that put me on this path, and if we go way back to 2006, 2007 kind of time, I got a call from a guy called Andy Corrigan who asked me to help him run an indie gaming website called This Is My Joystick. So ultimately I was an IT guy by day and gaming website guy by night. And that is what essentially put me on this path. A lot of crazy things happened after then. I know a lot of you know that story, so I won't bore you with all the details. But I often used to write about the explosion of esports, and I was often shouted down like a heretic, but thankfully all that has changed now. I just get called a heretic for championing crypto and blockchain. But I recently discovered a company called Challengermode, which is a leading grassroots esports platform working to make esports accessible to everyone. And in a nutshell, the platform enables anyone to play, host and monetize their own esports competitions, making it easy for gamers of any skill level to come together and compete. It's an incredibly cool story, but I don't want to reveal too many spoilers, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Stockholm in Sweden, where Robel Efrem is waiting to tell us all about it. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Robel Efrem. I'm 32 years old, live in Stockholm, Sweden. Parents originally from Eritrea, which is a small country in Africa, but they came here as refugees in the late 80s. Have a computer science background from the Stockholm University. And besides being an avid gamer and athlete, I'm also the co-founder and CEO of Challengermode.
Love it. And I'm so excited to get you on to talk about Challengermode today. And for people that are hearing about it for the first time, Challengermode is a leading grassroots esports platform that's working to make esports accessible to everyone. But can you tell me more about the story behind the company and what it was that put you on this path?
Sure. I started out my first company back when I was a student. It was a edtech platform called Intellectus. We have built a solution for capturing and streaming university lectures in a very simplified way. And I guess as most students, my bank account back then wasn't my strongest side, especially since I was sort of covering most of my old startup's expenses in the early days through student loans. So I sort of quickly found out that the cheapest way for me to kill time during weekends was to sit at home playing computer games. And I played a game called League of Legends and became really good at it. And at some point, I guess I realized that I'd probably spent a few thousand hours playing that game. So I wanted to find the most easiest and most accessible way for me to sort of convert my thousands hours of what I saw as training into something more tangible. So the options back then, this was in 2014, were extremely arcane and inaccessible. So me and my team ended up creating something to address that problem.
And before I hosted this podcast and was writing about technology, etc., way back in, I think it was 2007, I was helping to run a gaming website called This Is My Joystick. And I was always championing esports back then, but it really seems to have exploded in recent years and is not showing any signs of slowing down at all. But can you set the scene and tell me more about the industry? It remains extremely top heavy, though, and built around sponsorship and advertising revenue rather than consumer revenue and participation, because it seems like there's something missing there.
Yeah, sure. So Challengermode is looking to turn the current industry model on its head, right?
Yeah.
Creating value for all esports stakeholders from the bottom up as well as the top down. I'd say it's infeasible for the industry as a whole to continue growing and maturing if its main source of revenue continues to be sponsorships, especially when there's such big growth opportunities hidden in what we call the long tail of tournament organizers, teams, and players. So for us, part of doing this is enabling more players and organizers to participate in the esports economy, much like other tech innovations like mobile and streaming have made it possible for more people to consume video and music and games online.
So can you tell me more about how the platform that you've got here enables anyone to play, host, and monetize their own esports competitions, ultimately making it easy for gamers of any skill level to come together and compete? Because I know that would be incredibly exciting for me and my friends back in the day, and I know it would be for my son. But can you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we built a platform, in the true sense of the word, right? In that anyone can use it to create competitions and players can play in them. All of this is done through something we call Spaces, which essentially gives every esports organizer their own fully featured, standalone gaming site. It's designed to have everything you need to build, run, and grow communities, and of course earn money doing so. For gamers, I'd say it's the perfect way to find other like-minded players at the right skill level in their own favorite games. So every space is like a membership club for competitive gaming, you could say. So you create your own tournaments, leagues, and ladders that you then can monetize by selling, entry tickets or membership subscriptions to the space itself.
It's incredibly cool. And of course, here in Europe, you've been running millions of competitions for millions of players. But can I ask that you tell our US listeners, because we do have a huge percentage of US listeners to this podcast, can you tell them a little bit more about how Challenger Mode is currently gearing up to expand in North America this year?
Yeah, sure. So North America is home to over 57 million esports viewers. But despite the scene's exponential growth in the last decade, especially, the vast majority of this audience has never had a chance to participate in esports in any capacity, right? This is especially true for platforms like mobile and console. Most people can't even conceptualize how a mobile or console competition would sort of happen. So we've already onboarded a large number of US-based tournament organizers, and we're currently growing our partnerships team in order to be able to reach out to more in the near future. And I think that's all I can say at this point.
Well, I do love a good teaser. And I've got to ask, though, how has the pandemic impacted Challenger Mode and indeed the esports industry? Because I know I've revisited my passion for gaming over the last 12 months. I'm getting on in years, and it seems that the whole industry has exploded. But what have you seen as someone working in the industry?
Yeah. So the pandemic has progressed a lot of trends that we're, already seeing, that were sort of already on the way, right? And I'd say the same thing applies to esports too. Because Challenger Mode is focused largely on online esports competitions, we're sort of in a great position to be able to help a lot of sort of traditional tournament organizers and event organizers by bringing their esports events online fully and monetize them through our tools. Yeah.
And are there any other trends that you're seeing in the industry right now?
Growth.
Yeah.
Growth for sure. And also, a previously clear line between esports and gaming being blurred. So that's the two trends I'm seeing right now.
Incredibly cool. And I think it's also worth highlighting that you've got an incredibly impressive resume. You were nominated for the Young Entrepreneur of the Year 3 times. You founded 2 companies in the last 10 years. The first, which resulted in a successful exit, and the second, which of course is Challenger Mode, which has recently received a 12 million investment from Alibaba, with other investors, including Black Capital and even Swedish soccer player and legend Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So I've got to ask, though, what is your best tip for someone struggling to take their idea forward that are listening to your story today and just looking for a bit of advice or inspiration? So
I have like three favorite words. Just do it. I think it's Nike, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's perfect. Life is short. Don't walk around thinking about something too much. Sometimes it's just better to just do it. Yeah.
And on this Daily Tech podcast, I speak to somebody different from somewhere in the world every day. And I always try and put that particular place on the map too. And especially if it's a story outside of Silicon Valley. So as someone with a tech company in Sweden, is there anything about the tech scene over there or the startup culture that's particularly exciting, or you could say to just put Sweden on the map from the world of tech?
Yeah, I mean, so the ecosystem is fantastic, right? So Sweden is it's a small country. Stockholm it's an even smaller city, but I think it's the second most densest place on earth when it comes to billionaires, and I think we have a high amount of sort of unicorn companies as well. So there's this sort of culture of entrepreneurs making a successful journey and then reinvesting that the money that they've made into the ecosystem itself. So I'd say it sort of becomes this sort of fertile breeding ground for successful startups, and I love it. It's one of the best places on earth.
An incredibly beautiful country as well. And something else I always try and do on this podcast is bust a few myths along the way. I'm sure there's a few that frustrate you in the gaming industry. When I used to run a gaming website, I knew the average age of a gamer was 34 years old. I think it's still something like that as well. It's not just a 12-year-old in his or her bedroom. It's such a huge industry. But are there any other myths or misconceptions that you always come across in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're sort of touching it, right? Like, who is like the typical gamer? Is that a boy? Is that a girl? Is that a man? Is that a woman? A kid or an adult? On our platform, I'd say like the average age is between, I think it's 23 years old.
Yeah,
which is high.
And that's the thing. I think there's so many. I think really we're all gamers, no matter what age you are, whether it's a 60-year-old playing a game on Facebook. It's just games are everywhere. We all love playing. It's like the favorite pastime. And I've got to ask, though, what's next for Challenger Mode? Is there anything else you can share about the road ahead?
So simply put, we're going to improve the product. We'll expand the team. We'll also, improve and expand our offering when it comes to game developers. And I'd say our name should hint, what we're going after.
Oh, excellent. Well, before I let you go, for anyone listening that would maybe want to set up their own esports tournament or find out more information about Challenger Mode, check out a few videos or even contact your team, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, so you'll reach the platform, on Challengermode.com. You'll reach me, by email. Try to check it. I get a lot though, so Robel at Challengermode.com, and if you want to reach the rest of the team, it's team at Challengermode.com.
Well, I always say at the end of every episode that technology works best when it brings people together. And what I love about what you're doing here is, yes, Challenger Mode is a leading grassroots esport platform, but your mission there of making esports accessible to everyone, that is where the magic happens, and that sweet spot for me. So a big thank you for taking the time to share your story with me today.
Neil, this was my pleasure.
As an aging gamer, I still get excited by hearing how companies such as Challenger here are using technology to enable anyone to play, host and monetize esports competitions and make it easy for gamers of any skill level to just come together and compete. That was my dream when I was a kid. In fact, I always remember this is going to age me now, but I remember playing on an Atari 2600 and I was chatting with my friend at school and he said, one day we'll be able to connect everything together and play games against other people anywhere in the world. And I looked at him before even Bill and Ted's Adventure came out, and I just kind of looked at him and went, whoa. And look at where we are now. But I am grateful that I've been there from the very beginning and following the journey of gaming. It's an incredibly exciting space. But I'd love to put the microphone in front of you all. Do we have anybody listening that uses the Challenger platform listening to this podcast today? If you do, what do you like? What do you dislike? And what excites you about the future? And what other platforms do you use? Whatever it is, I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to share your opinions, insights and experiences on a future episode so we can all learn from each other. So email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll return again tomorrow where we'll explore a completely different industry and how technology is transforming it. So all that's left for me to say is a big thank you for tuning in, as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.